Hello, my friends. How's everyone doing this afternoon? I just got called out, I think, in chat. Let's see. Let's see. Katie did it. Says, waiting for just Rhonda. What would Eric Jose say about being late? Well, there wouldn't be a whole lot he would be able to say because he was always late.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if it was like 8:30, then she could say something. But
Yeah.
yeah, no.
Yeah, he doesn't get to wherever he is, he doesn't get to say shit about me being late.
Oop.
Oh gosh. Well, we were there was another podcast that went pretty long this afternoon, and that's not the reason that I'm a couple of minutes late, but I was trying to pay attention as much as I could to a fellow podcaster, and so I did get a little, not really behind, but I needed to get something to eat is what it really comes down to. Before
You
we
brought
went
enough.
on.
You brought enough for me and Alice. I'm sure. Okay,
No,
yeah,
because
sure
I
you
ate
did.
it all already.
Son of a.
I already ate it all.
That's fine. I understand.
Well, that's how it is, it's just what everybody's got to feed themselves. You're a big boy and a big girl. You can take care of it on your own.
Apparently, I understand.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much, Katie. Did it? She says, I thought he said you weren't late until 15 minutes past start time. I do get that late occasionally. I try really hard not to, but yeah, I do. I know I get late like that sometimes. So in that sense, we'll just sit here for another 5 or 10 minutes and not talk. How's that? And then we can be late.
No, no,
No,
no,
okay.
no. Speaking of, Christina's podcast, that really got interesting. I'm not trying to talk about that. I'm just saying it because it all changed. We weren't planning on doing that. Literally, that all changed after the live started, which
Right.
it worked out. But
Yeah. Well, yeah, I started posting the links that she had for us, and then it was like, wait a minute, these aren't working anymore.
nope.
So yeah, but it was definitely interesting, and it was a good surprise, to have the
Oh, Nicole's lawyer and Ripper.
yeah,
Oh, that
Nicole's
was.
lawyer and Ripper and
He's just her lawyer is just a wealth of information. He knows the case backwards and forwards,
right.
and so we'll see where we go and get with that. Certainly, from everything, just from what little I can see, it's a definite wrongful conviction, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Jack, why are you waving at the porn bot?
Is that a porn bot?
Yes, it was a
Oh,
porn
I see
bot.
that. I see that. Hey, what the hell am I doing? I'll take care of that. Goodbye, porn bot.
Jack's just waving. Hey, what's up, porn bots? Now they're all going to come in. They think they're all welcome now. Okay, I want to say hello to everybody who's in chat. Let's see. We have little Barb. It's so great to see you. Thank you for coming and for being in the chat. And you know, I can't wait for questions and comments. And we have Katie did it, putting me on blast, kind of, sort of, but not really. But she did stick the tongue out at me. So, and we have. Let's see, we have Alice. There's Alice in Wrongful Conviction Land, and J Jack 61. Hey, and Mo's Call. How you doing, Mose? Thank you for coming. Anthony D. It's great to see you again. And please, nobody else wave to the porn bot.
Yeah, I'll try not to do that anymore. I just saw somebody come in and I'm like, I better say hi to him. I'm trying to say hello to everyone. And I did.
You sure did. You didn't miss anyone. That's for damn sure. You sure did not miss anyone. I'm sure that Cherie will be joining us at some point, but she's probably on her way home from work right now. So that's okay. We'll get started and she'll catch up when she gets here. First thing I wanted to do was start with a little, well, first of all, I learned a couple of little, I don't want to call them tricks, but couple of little things that have been available for a little while now in StreamYard, but I never played with them because, the person, who you tell can't crash a computer, I can crash a computer, and I can completely delete every single thing in my computer just with an easy copy and paste and somewhere along the line a delete. So I've never really messed with it, but I hope that it's going to work today. So we're going to go, but we're going to start with, hi, Sunshine Christina. It's great to have you. Thank you for coming. So what we're going to start with tonight is I'm going to experiment the first one, the first little trick that I used, and we're going to get a little bitty update about Gayland Gieger that we got. I think it was yesterday or the day before. What is today, Wednesday? It was yesterday or Monday that we got this. So I'm going to share this with you guys now. And whoa, hold on. Ooh, yeah, that thing is ready to go before I'm ready to go. Okay.
That's what she said.
Yeah, that's what she said for sure.
Does anyone believe this was a mistake? Yeah. Wow. Look at that.
We're gonna see what this what Gayland Gieger has to say. Oh, sorry, because of course I'm trying to check my volume and make sure it's okay. Okay.
You sound fine.
I do, but the videos don't always.
Oh, okay.
Okay, here we go.
A candidate for Oklahoma County District Attorney is facing criticism for using a contact list compiled by a Metro nonprofit. Gayland Gieger's campaign says the email blast was a mistake.
News 9 Storm Jones is downtown at the courthouse now with the latest.
Republican Gayland Gieger says he's been the lead prosecutor over Oklahoma County's child abuse and sex crimes unit for 13 years. Now he's taking heat for using email addresses from a nonprofit advocating for abused children to solicit campaign donations. The email sent out to at least 82 addresses, including the chief of police, employees of OG&E, Bank of Oklahoma, Bank First, the Arnall Family Foundation, and the Chickasaw Nation. It says, in part, thank you again for supporting the Care Center and in advance for your help to make sure the work the Care Center begins is successfully completed in the courtroom. The maximum individual amount allowed is $2,900, but even $25 is helpful and appreciated. Care Center Executive Director Stacy McNeilon followed up the next day with apologies, saying the email was sent without the nonprofit's knowledge or permission. According to McNeilon, the list contained email addresses CC'd as part of the center's weekly reports to public officials, as well as emails provided to Gieger when he volunteered with the center more than 18 months ago. She wrote, "We expected that information to remain confidential, and we are extremely frustrated by this situation. I reached out to the Gieger campaign last week, who at first called it a miscommunication, before providing a statement saying a mistake was made with information provided to us by supporters, and appropriate actions have been taken." And I did reach out to the Care Center directly, but did not hear back. At the Oklahoma County Courthouse, Storm Jones, Oklahoma's own News 9.
So that is the news that we got from Oklahoma this week. And so I'm just curious if anybody believes that Mr. Gieger's campaign made a mistake or not. I guess I'm lagging quite a bit. Sorry, guys, on YouTube. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's no mistake there. The mistake was that he didn't think he was going to get caught, is my thought.
Yeah, that's the yeah, and boo-hoo that he doesn't really care that he did either. Can't unring the bell.
Yeah. No, he doesn't care that he did, because he thinks that he can just continue to, tell the Oklahomans whatever he thinks they want to hear, and they're gonna buy his BS. So please don't wave at this person, Jack. The next one, please don't wave.
Nope, they're gonna go by. Well, dark side will probably.
Okay.
Yeah, dark side will probably take care of it. Yep. See, there you go. Boom.
Dark side. I appreciate that. I also, when I remove those guys, I also report, and I'm fixing too. I'm
Yeah, I do
curious.
that as well. I
Good.
report them as well because I think if they get a lot of reports, then they stop coming. So everyone,
Hopefully.
even if somebody else deletes it, I still go in and I report it.
Yeah, me too.
Just me alone doing Christina's podcast. I probably deleted and reported probably 6 or 8 myself. That the ones that the Dark Side and Cat didn't get.
And I know I got a few before I actually left. There were a few because I think I only was able to stick around for about an hour or so, and I managed to catch a couple before I left. So
Wow.
they're just frustrating. I made a comment somewhere today. I don't know if it was I think it was in Discord somewhere. You know, if YouTube is so big on censoring, you know, things that we say or do or present or show, but they can but they can't manage to get rid of these porn bots for us. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
So,
you would think that you would think they originate, somewhere in within a certain region. I'm not saying that's true because I don't know, but you would think that it would be able to block,
somehow.
whatever. Yeah.
Right. Roxanne says, I'm curious which one of the individuals who received the email spoke up about the email. In reality, how was that email found out about? Does that make sense? Oh, good question. Hi, R. William. Great to have you here.
It is a good question.
He's not a bot. We know you're not a bot, William. We're not worried about you. You're safe. Yeah, great question. Who did? Who spilled that? Had to have been somebody on the email list or the nonprofit organization for sure. So yeah, I'm glad it hit the news. I hope it starts raising some questions about the lying assistant district attorney. He has no business being in the DA's office. So today, now this is another part of something that I figured out today. So what I figured out today, it's something that I've always seen whenever I go into the share screen. These little things will pop up, and one of them is slides, to add slides, and then another one says video file. And I've never messed with them because I'm just always terrified that I'm gonna mess something up. So I've never messed with them.
You can't really break it.
Jack, come on now.
Well, no, well, I mean, unless you completely break, I guess you can break StreamYard, but they're going to be mad.
We'll let them sue me. They're not going to get anything out of me. So, yeah, I like that idea very much. Katie did it. Says it must have been someone on the list who doesn't support Gieger.
Yeah, no doubt.
He's pissed somebody off on the list. But yeah, so I figured out that I can actually add the slides or add a video file to my StreamYard where it says
well, that's
share.
cool.
I can add it right there at the bottom.
Well, that makes it so much easier.
So much easier because then I don't have 10 tabs open and I don't have to search for which one it is that I was going to play next because I can't always name or number them. And so I'm just like, wow, this is pretty exciting. I'm pretty jazzed about it.
That's neat. Yeah, I like that.
So yeah, so we'll see how it works. And so what we're going to do today is I want to address things first though. Roxanne says that's where I'm headed with my thought. Are the names public with news stations? Can we get those names? I think we should sure try. They blurred them all out, obviously, on the news report, but I bet it. I wonder if we could FOIA something like that. I don't know if it's public.
Well, if they've got it, if the news station had it, it's public record or that's FOIAble.
Yeah. So yeah, well, that's something we'll have to look at and see if we can figure out. And Mo says there seems to be a way to get emails from any account. Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, the ones that we want, we can't ever get without going through a bunch of BS. But we'll have to look into that, Roxanne and Katie did it. We'll have to look into that and see what we can figure out. Well, Roxanne. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started with the slides. I'm going to add them to the stream. see. Lola! Look how wonderful that was. I didn't even have to search in a million tabs. It's just right there. It's so amazing. Those of you who have done StreamYard before or know how StreamYard works, if you haven't done this yet, you got to do it. It's really, really nice and easy. So I told you last week that we're going to start talking tonight about Mark Fowler. And Mark Fowler is not he wasn't I don't know who that is.
Sorry, Rhonda, sorry, you're sounding a bit staticky.
I was just wondering if that was me or who that was.
Yeah, hold on, I'll try and mute, see if it's me.
Okay. Does that sound any better? I think it might have been
You sound fine to me.
Okay. Yeah, that sounded better. Right, I'll stay muted now.
Well, okay. I don't know if it's you for sure, but we'll see. We'll find out. If I start sounding yucky again, someone let me know. So Mark Fowler was not like he wasn't a golden child angel by any stretch of the imagination. He had done time in prison. He'd been in and out of jail. He had some legal problems. He wasn't completely innocent of other crimes. However, once this plays out, everything that I've prepared for you for his case, once it's all played out, you can decide based on the other accused suspect. You can let me know if you how you feel about it. So we'll just go ahead and start with Mark Andrew Fowler. So shortly before 4 a.m. on July 3rd, 1985, Carrie Lee Weaver arrived at work at Wynn's IGA supermarket in Edmond, Oklahoma. After searching the store for her coworkers, she went to the back of the store and into the walk-in cooler. She saw the three men, her coworkers, that lying on the floor, kind of in a semicircle. It looked like the floor was she thought the floor looked like it had blood on it, but she wasn't sure. She figured that these guys were all just playing a joke on her. And so she kicked one of them and told him, "Get up, time to go to work. Come on, get up, let's go." And then she very quickly realized or recognized the men as Rick Cast, John Barrier, and Chumpan Chowison. And she also realized that they were all dead. The three men had been herded to the back of the storeroom into the back storeroom of the store during a robbery. Cast was 33 years old and he was a night manager in the store. Chowison was a 44-year-old Asian graduate student and he worked as a stalker, and they were both shot in the back of the head with a shotgun. And then Barrier was a 27-year-old manager trainee and he was stabbed and beaten to death. And Bob Macy lived in Edmond, Oklahoma at the time, and he shopped at that store on a regular basis. And so he was summoned by the Edmond Police Department. And when he got there, the crime scene was still being processed and the bodies had not yet been removed. So Bob Macy said, "It's a horrible crime, a totally needless crime," Macy told reporters. "If they had executed Roger Dale Stafford, this wouldn't have happened. So I wasn't going to do it, but then I thought, no, I wanted to give you guys the reason I wanted to let you guys know why he said that." And so, Jack, do you want to read the Roger Dale Stafford slide for me?
Sure.
Okay.
Roger Dale Stafford, the most hated man in Oklahoma, known as the Steakhouse Murderer. July 16, 1978, Stafford, along with two others, drove from Tulsa to Oklahoma City to rob the Sirloin Stockade restaurant. They waited in the restaurant parking lot until all the customers had left. At around 10 p.m., Roger Stafford knocked on the side door of the restaurant. The manager answered the door and was greeted by Roger and Harold Stafford pointing guns at him. They forced him to take them to the cash register and the office safe. The manager made a terrible decision that cost him and 5 other people their lives. He began taunting the Staffords, saying they could not understand why people rob others instead of working for themselves. Roger Stafford hit the manager and demanded that he call his employees to the cash register. Hello.
Sorry, I was muted. I'll explain in a further slide, but Roger Stafford and Harold Stafford, they were brothers. And then Roger Stafford's wife is also going to come into the picture. So all of their last names are Stafford.
Gotcha.
Do you feel like reading anything, Alice, or how are you? You want to
Yeah,
help? Okay.
yeah, no problem.
Want to grab this one?
Yeah. I can't make out that first word with
Oh,
the timer.
yeah, sorry. It's Verna, the wife of. It's the wife of Roger's wife.
Harold and Berna.
Harold
Yeah.
and Verna held workers at gunpoint. Roger and the manager emptied the safe of $1,290. He then ordered everyone into the walk-in freezer. Roger Stafford shot the only black employee. Both men opened fire on the remaining employees. Vernon Stafford would later testified that she heard a lot of gunfire and screaming. Roger then told Verna that it was time for her to take part. He placed his gun in Verna's hand and helped her pull the trigger. Harold Stafford died in a motorcycle wreck a week after the Sirloin Stockade murders. Stafford shot 17-year-old David Lindsay, 16-year-old David Salzman, seven,
Yeah, 17-year-old. Sorry.
17-year-old Anthony Tu, and 15-year-old Terry Horst, execution style. Stafford also killed 43-year-old Louis Zakaris, the store manager, and 56-year-old Isaac Freeman.
Um, R. William is asking, is there a YouTube documentary about this case? There could be. There may very well be. I don't know, but I do know. I do remember when this happened because it was. I mean, I saw it on the news where I'm at here in Utah. So
Oh yeah, this would have made national news, I'm
yeah,
sure.
this made some big. I do remember it making some big news. Roxanne might be able to tell us if there was a documentary, or somebody else might be able to tell if there's a documentary about it. I wouldn't be surprised if there was, though. So I didn't even think to look for anything like that. Okay, so the Oklahoman. I only printed just a tiny bit of this, but the Oklahoman killer Stafford was executed. Murderer displayed a grin prior to death. Um, so this was actually published in 2008, this article, but it was originally published on the 1st of July, 1995. McAllister, mass murderer Roger Dale Stafford, whose 15 and a half year stay on death row outraged Oklahomans almost as much as did his crimes, was executed early today. Stafford was pronounced dead at 12:30 a.m. at Oklahoma State Penitentiary. Stafford insisted to the end he was innocent of the murders of 9 people 17 years ago. He was executed for the June 22nd, 1978 slayings of a San Antonio family along Interstate 35 near Purcell. So the crimes that he was executed for were not actually the Sirloin Stockade murders, which I didn't, like I said, I didn't go through this entire article, but I can only imagine, even though he was executed, and if that's how you prefer to see justice brought, if you're in a situation like that, then that, I mean, I have respect for that, but I can imagine that if you were you know, pro death penalty or pro capital punishment, and you're one of those family members of those 6 that were killed in the Sirloin Stockade restaurant, I can only imagine that it had to have had some sort of dissatisfaction, possibly, because it wasn't their family members who he was executed for. even though he did receive was executed. Um, but he was saying in his final statement, I'd like to tell the world you're seeing an innocent man murdered. I've got nothing to lose by telling a lie. Somewhere, somehow, someplace, somebody, please exonerate me. Seek truth and justice. The truth will set you free, but not me. Give me the peace of giving my name back. Stafford maintained a wide grin until he went unconscious. And when I read that, I thought, how many people are we investigating or researching right now who are testifying to the very last to this very second that they're innocent. I'm innocent. I didn't do this. I didn't commit this crime. I'm innocent. Help me. And but the difference is these people, this man, Roger Stafford, had, like I said, the crimes that he was executed for had happened the year or two before, through about 3 years earlier. And in that crime, he, his wife Verna, and his brother Harold had set this crime up. They were on the side of the road, and they had the hood up on the car, and Verna, the wife, was standing outside of the car, and when somebody pulled over to assist her, he was ambushed. And it wasn't just him, it was him and his wife and their 13-year-old son. And the husband and wife were military. They were involved in the military. And they, I believe they shot the man first, and then they shot the woman, the wife, because she was screaming and pounding on the window. And then they finished killing those two, and then they heard a small child's voice. And I was trying to get a visual, but on the back of the truck that they were driving, there was like a mesh tent or something. And so they cut a hole in the mesh of the tent, and not they, Roger, and saw the boy in there, the 13-year-old boy, and shot and killed him in cold blood. And those were the three murders that he was actually executed for. But this man was a horrible, horrible, evil individual. So when Bob Macy said if they would have killed Roger Stafford a long time ago, the murders of these three individuals in the store wouldn't have happened. It just happened that he was going to be executed. He just hadn't yet. But Bob Macy wanted to make a big deal of it. We got to execute these people. Bob Macy did not like that there was years of appeals allowed to criminals. He wanted tried, convicted, sentenced, executed, boom, 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 as quickly as possible. So Roger Stafford was executed on July 1st, 1995, but not for the Sirloin Stockade murders. So it really struck me when I read the part about the little boy in the tent just being shot in cold blood like that. And then these are just some pictures of the individuals. There weren't very many, thank goodness, really. But so this was part of a newspaper article, Oklahoma Spring Papers. This is Harold Stafford, and then Verna, and then Roger Stafford, and that was the Sirloin Stockade that night. The truth about Daniel Holtzclaw says that link is a YouTube video on RDS. I know I should know what that means, but I don't. On RDS. What link? Do I have a link in there that? Okay, well, we'll figure it out. So anyway,
Rhonda, I did find a 3-minute clip from the Oklahoman video. I just put in the chat.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I haven't watched it. I don't know what's on it, but they've got it titled as Sirloin Stockade Murders.
Okay, you want to show it, Jack?
It's a YouTube clip. I can. I'm sure. I don't have a problem with it.
I mean, I'm not monetized. It's fine. Or
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Let me share my screen here. Give me just 1 second. Doot. Back over here. Close that. Okay. Now, where am I at here? Share screen. There we go.
oh,
Tell me when you're ready.
go ahead.
To a sirloin stockade off of Southwest 74th in Oklahoma City. 3 people got out and headed for the door, intent on leaving with cash. Once inside, the group herded 6 restaurant employees into a meat locker. Moments later, the sound of gunfire echoed through the restaurant. The group piled back into their car and peeled out of the parking lot with $1,200 in hand. When police arrived, only 1 employee was still alive, but died an hour later.
But what I really remember to this very day is each body coming out one by one by one until all of the victims have been removed. And of course, photographing each body as they came out. And at that time in my career, I was probably in my early 20s. Many of the victims, were similar ages to me or maybe a little younger. And to just be going to their job, doing what they do to earn some money, and then to be killed so violently and senselessly. It certainly attracted everybody's attention.
Detectives gathered fingerprints and searched for clues at the scene. Their search for answers would last for 5 months. Officials with OSBI received a tip from an anonymous caller claiming to have met the 3 suspected killers. He told investigators 2 of their names, Verna and Harold Stafford. Harold Stafford was killed in a motorcycle accident in Tulsa just a few days after the Sirloin Stockade slayings, but authorities found Verna in Chicago. Verna implicated her husband in the shooting deaths, and a nationwide manhunt for Roger Dale Stafford was underway. March 13, 1979, Chicago police arrested Roger Stafford at a YMCA, and he was sent back to Oklahoma the following day. Verna came to Oklahoma to testify against her estranged husband. She claimed Roger and his brother Harold started shooting when one restaurant employee started talking back. 1 week after the trial began, Roger Stafford was found guilty on 6 counts of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to die by lethal injection. Stafford and his attorney filed numerous appeals that prevented his death for nearly 17 years. He was executed July 2nd, 1995.
There was a lot of animosity toward him and toward the system because of the time that he was on death row going through these various appeals.
Even after his death, Stafford had one final comment.
There was, we found out a day or 2 later after the execution that even from the grave, Roger Dale Stafford was sort of playing a practical joke of sorts on the state. He sent a $5 gift card to the woman who's in charge of death penalty appeals for the Attorney General's office. Her name was Sandy Howard. He sent her a $5 gift card from Sirloin Stockade, of all places. I believe it was from the Sirloin Stockade in McAllister. And basically there was a note on the back of it that said something to the effect of, congratulations, you have participated in the murder of an innocent man.
Stafford's estranged wife Verna would later be sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms for her role in the Sirloin Stockade murders, as well as her role in another crime.
Wow. That's I hadn't seen that. That's definitely interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The truth about Daniel Holtzclaw says, my O sticks, my G sticks. I guess that makes me the OG. Yes, it does make you the OG for real. And I just realized in your other comment when you said art, that's a link on the YouTube video on RDS. I'm like, duh. Where's Susan when I need my duh gift?
By the way, Rhonda, Susan's headed back out to BF, Kansas. So
I saw that. Yeah, I hope she's traveling safe. Everybody wish her to travel safe, and her
absolutely.
she's had not great luck in the past.
Hopefully
Okay.
it'll be as pleasant as it was last week. So we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was going to say what happened. Um, yeah, I guess that's the negative thing about my neat little trick that I discovered. Because I don't pay for the upgrade in what's it called, StreamYard, so I have to deal with their stupid little um,
Duck.
yeah, the little whatever that is, and the timer and stuff up in the left corner. Um, so they anyway, there was they had, I believe they had gotten $2,700 in cash and checks, and the safe that was in the same office that they had broken into had not uh, had not been opened. Um, oh, whoops, that's the wrong. Just kidding. That was the wrong. That was the wrong slide. This is I was jumped right from this one right to the Fowler case. So sorry about that. Not every new little trick is, foolproof. So
Well, you're walking in this brand new, so you're allowed a couple of mulligans here, so you're fine.
okay, thanks. Okay, so anyway, I feel like I've missed a slide and I don't know where it's gone. I'm missing a slide though. Um, I don't know where it went. At any rate, so the boys, or these Fowler and Fox, had gone into the store, and the girl, the workers that were there were shot, killed, beaten, and stabbed. Um, and they had made out with, or gotten away with, the $2,700 in cash, and checks were missing from the cash register, and the register tray that was in the groceries office. And the safe in the same office had not been opened. So they just, Fowler and Fox just grabbed whatever they could get out of the cash tray. Um, on July 3rd, Roger Collins called in a tip to Edmond Police Crime Stopper hotline, and he told the police that he knew who had committed the murders at Wynn's IGA. I hear that scratching again. Ugh. I I hope it's not the cats playing with my Ethernet. Um, Collins told.
It might have been me typing. Rhonda, I apologize. I'll mute next time.
Oh well, no, it just sounds scratchy. I'm not sure where that comes from. I I mean, I'm used to guitaring, but I'm not used to having scratchy. Anyway, but Collins told the police that he knew had committed these murders, and he claimed that he knew the location of the murder weapon, of the gun. And he told them that his roommate, Billy Ray Fox, admitted involvement in the crime to his two other roommates, Chris Glasner and Roger's brother, Jimmy Collins. Glasner and Jimmy Collins said that at approximately 2:30 the previous morning, Fox and Billy Ray Fox and Mark Fowler had borrowed two shotguns from them. Fox returned around 7 o'clock in the morning, and he brought back one of the shotguns, and he told him, "I fucked up, man. I killed some people." Fox and Glazner then went into the living room and turned on the television, and they saw a news bulletin, and it was talking about the Wynn's IGA murders. And Fox said, "That's what it's about. I killed two of them. Then I killed the third one. I hit him over the head with a gun." He said that Fowler had stabbed the third victim, and he asked his roommate to vouch for him as an alibi. So Fox,
What a
I
guy.
remember, yeah, really. I remember reading this. I kept getting Fox and Fowler mixed up, like who was who, but Fox is the younger of the two, and he tried to blame. He's going to try to blame all of it on Fowler, on Mark Fowler. But there was an eyewitness that had said what he told him, that he had killed two of them and then killed the third one. So it's clear here, at least in this eyewitnesses or this ear witnesses testimony, that Fox admitted to killing all three of these guys in the grocery store that morning. Jack, do you want to read this slide? If you want, you don't have to. You're muted.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was muted, sitting here talking to myself. No problem. Okay. Here we go. On July 4th, shortly after midnight, 19-year-old Billy Ray Fox was arrested. He had seen the police coming towards him, and he quickly stuffed a wad of cash into his friend's hand. Found in the bed of Fox's truck, bloody splinters from a broken stock of a shotgun, the gun's forestock and 2 spent shell casings. In the cab of the truck, T-shirt that had bloodstains consistent with a knife being wiped clean on it. Fox told police where to find the white purse that contained checks written from the WinSI GA. Fox told police where he had hidden a knife, later proved to be consistent with Barner's wounds. The shotgun barrel was found hidden beneath some debris in Fox's backyard. After the robbery and murders, Fox had gone on a shopping spree at Quail Springs Mall buying clothes and jewelry.
All right. So again, here I just want to point out that Fox is, giving up some pretty inculpating information.
Statements.
Yeah, statements. Yeah. Thank you. Alice, do you want to read this one? You're muted.
Welcome to my world.
Twice, but Jack, I did it earlier when we first came on. I'm talking away to myself, and Rhonda's like, "Nope, I can't hear you." And I'd had about 4 sentences said already.
Now, the very beginning of this says 20-year-old Mark Andrew Fowler. Okay,
right. 20-year-old Mark Andrew Fowler already had a troubling criminal record. Car theft and credit card fraud, sentenced to 18 months in prison. Pleaded guilty to 5 counts of forcible oral sodomy that took place while he was in county jail. I attempted to learn more about these charges being occurred while he was in the county jail. I'm skeptical. Mark Fowler was arrested the same night at his girlfriend's apartment, where they had just finished throwing a party with beer and steaks taken from the supermarket. During taped police interrogations following their arrest, both Fox and Fowler admitted they were at the scene but blamed each other for the murders. Both of them said that the plan had been originated by Fox. Fox had been employed by Wine's IGA sometime before the crimes, but had been fired after a year.
Basically, that I was just making a note that Fox was familiar with the what time of the day things were going to be done, and 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever time it was, 12:30 in the morning, whenever he went in, he knew that who was going to be there and what they were going to be doing. So he knew where the safe was, where the cash drawer was going to be. So he had a pretty good line on what to do once they got in there. Excuse me. The plan was Fowler was to enter the store pretending to be a shopper and signal to Fox, who would be waiting outside when the employees were in the back room. Fox, who thought he could get into the safe, would then enter the store unnoticed and take the money. From there, the 2 suspects' stories went in different directions. Fox said that Fowler forced the 3 employees into the back room at gunpoint. As Fox gathered the money from the cash registers, he heard a gunshot and headed toward the storeroom. When he arrived there, he heard another shot. Then he saw Fowler beat John Barrier, with the shotgun. But that's not what he said when they saw the news report that morning. And Fowler told the police that Fox had been carrying the shotgun. The employees recognized their former colleague. And one of them said, "I haven't seen you in a while, Bill." Fowler remembered one of the employees saying. Fox then herded them into the back storeroom. Fowler said he stayed outside the storeroom until he heard 2 shots. When he entered the storeroom, he saw the bodies on the floor. And then Fowler, during his police interview, said, "I freaked out, man. It was over with. Them people were gone. There was no reason for them people to die. Kind of like I got set up in this deal." So, I mean, you kind of just have to. I mean, we'll never know the truth, obviously, because both of these kids were saying that the other one did the crime. But we know that Fox, Billy Ray Fox, told the police that he had done all of it, and all of the murder evidence was, all the crime scene evidence was in his truck. Um, and yes, Mark Fowler did participate. He was there. He was, if you believe his story, he was the lookout. And those guys, Fowler or Fox had already killed these guys before he, got back there to see what was going on, in his words. And so that's what Fowler said, is that he freaked out, and he told the police that, by the time he got there, it was done. And now he's, I guess at that point, feeling like he got set up for the crime, for the murders. Mark Fowler's father, who's Jim Fowler, is the son of a law enforcement official and a devout Catholic. Jim Fowler believed that criminals should pay for their crimes, but in this case, he was torn between his sense of justice and love for his son. Mark admitted helping to plan and carry out the robbery, but claimed he hadn't killed anybody. Jim, his father, believed him. He knew his son would go to prison. He just wanted to save his life. And that's the only picture I could find of Jim Fowler. I'm sure there are others, but I couldn't find any other pictures. But this picture is a photo of him after the execution. Now, what I decided to do, because there's so much information in this case, what I decided to do was I'm just going
When an
to
accomplice in an armed
I'm just going to play and I don't know what kind of trouble this might get me into with copyright, so I might just have to pause every few minutes and make a comment somewhere, just to kind
You're
of.
doing this. You're doing this as a rebuttal.
We're doing
Under
this
the
as a rebuttal.
under the Fair Use Act.
Right. So I will probably pause this at times, and we'll discuss, something. Or Alice, Jack, or anybody in the chat, if you hear something that you'd like to question or comment on, please let me know, and we can pause. And then that can kind of keep me out of trouble, I think, as far as fair use and copyright, if I understand that correctly. So this is just the most of the reading that I did, the recording that I did for this chapter in Death and Justice.
Death and Justice by Mark Furman, Chapter 8, A Robbery Gone Wrong Against Each Suspect. When a co-suspect is used as a witness, you might cut a deal for life with his son. Mark Fowler admitted helping to plan and carry out the robbery, but claimed that he hadn't killed anybody. Jim believed him. He knew his son would go to prison. He just wanted to save the boy's life. When an accomplice in an armed robbery that results in murder can be reasonably eliminated as the killer, and he agrees to testify against the other suspects, it is common practice to reduce the sentence sought against the cooperating witness. If life without parole is sought for the other suspects, you might cut a deal for life with the possibility of parole. In a death penalty crime, this is a very powerful leverage to ensure a conviction, not just against the killer, but also against the cooperating suspect, who will plead out and therefore avoid a trial. Even if the law gives the prosecutor the power to charge every suspect with the death penalty, it's counterproductive, even unjust, to seek the death penalty against each suspect. When a
I just want to make sure that everyone knows that at some point in my life, I could actually say that C word without as much hesitation until somebody put me on the spot and made me self-conscious about it. So I blame Jack for that, and I always will.
Not my fault, but I can corroborate. I can corroborate
It
that.
is absolutely your fault. But this is going to talk a little bit going on from here. It's going to talk a little bit about how having more than one suspect at a murder scene, even though one person pulled a trigger or stabbed or whatever, how different states or how laws affect all involved parties.
co-suspect is used as a witness for the prosecution, the state has an eyewitness to the entire crime, including its planning and execution. In most states, the act of engaging in felony that results in murder is grounds for first-degree murder. In California, this is called the felony murder rule. Oklahoma has a similar law. If a suspect is involved in the felony, he can be charged with the murder even if he was not directly responsible for it. The California law was often used as an inducement for accomplices to roll on their co-suspects. In the case of Fox and Fowler, Bob Macy used it to get 2 death penalty sentences for a single crime. Even if Mark Fowler was involved in the death of John Barrier, a plea deal with Fowler would have ensured a death sentence against Billy Ray Fox. Most of the evidence pointed against Fox as both the instigator of the robbery plot and the killer of at least 2 of the victims. If Macy had cut a deal with Mark Fowler, he could have saved himself a lot of trouble, yet he never seemed to consider it. Initially, Fox and Fowler were going to be tried separately. 2 weeks before Fox's trial was to begin, both his trial and Fowler's trial, which was to start immediately after Fox's, were delayed because Joyce Gilchrist was late in finishing her forensic testing and sending it to the defense on discovery. Once Joyce Gilchrist did,
Here we go with Joyce Gilchrist.
I was just about to say that, Rhonda. Here we go. Here we go.
Here we go. Yep, yep. And she does a pretty good job at screwing things up. In my opinion, for Fowler, I feel really weird because, kind of like with Malcolm Rent Johnson, I feel bad for him in the sense that he was railroaded for the crime that he was executed for, but he wasn't the one who committed the crime, and so you're going to see something very similar in this case as well, and we will have Joyce Gilchrist to thank for it.
finish her lab reports, Macy asked for the trials to be joined. Macy said that hair evidence was real important because it placed both defendants in the back storeroom. Because the 2 suspects had mutually antagonistic defenses, it would make sense to try them separately, but Bob Macy wanted one trial. It really doesn't make much difference from a legal standpoint which one did what, because they're both guilty on all counts of murder in the first degree if they were there and participated in any way, or even if they knew in advance that this was going to happen, Bob Macy said. Macy argued that a joint trial would save time and money, and he said that if the trials were held separately, the second trial might have a change of venue because of publicity surrounding the first. Judge David Cook ruled that Fox and Fowler would be tried together. The defendants are entitled to a fair trial, not a perfect one, Judge Cook said, setting their trial date for less than a month later.
I was so offended or something about that when he said that they're entitled to uh, a fair trial, just not a perfect one. And it seems to me, I realize that all trials aren't perfect. That's obvious. Even ones that turn out the way they should, they're not perfect. But when you're trying, in this case, two men for their lives, it better be pretty doggone close to perfect as much as possible, and not a bunch of quibbling and squabbling over little things. Every little thing needs to be as perfect as it can possibly be, in my opinion.
In an editorial, the Oklahoman applauded Judge Cook's decision. Quote, "One of the glaring flaws in our criminal justice system is the amount of nitpicking over minute legal technicalities which contribute to inordinate trial delays and, on appeal, often result in reversals of trial court verdicts or orders for new trials." End quote. Whether
And the Oklahoman, leave it to the Oklahoman to call it nitpicking. The amount of nitpicking, it's not. And Alice or Jack, please jump in if you have anything to add. But I just don't know how they can just be referred to, trying to save a man's life from, not necessarily from prison, but from, the death penalty. It's just offensive for the Oklahoman to refer to it as nitpicking over minute legal technicalities. Um, Now, if we're talking about legal technicalities and people are getting off, from major crimes and murders and rapes and whatever, horrible things they're done, and they are able to get off on that away from their punishment because of legal technicalities, yeah, that's obnoxious and unfair and disgusting and gross. But for the Oklahoman to refer to all of the things that are uh, you know discussed, to refer to them as nitpicking because they're filing appeals, that's really offensive to me.
Yeah, as Rhonda, because they shouldn't be reporting on things like that. You know what I mean? They should have been reporting on the way the trial and things like that were going. I mean, I can't remember what case it was or what chapter it is in the book, but remember in one of the cases, Bob Macy was that adamant that this guy had done it. He actually said, "Oh, it doesn't matter if he was there or no. He must have knew something about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
If he wasn't actually there, then I'm going to get him, and he's going to go to the death penalty because he at least knew about it. So even have that attitude is disgusting."
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's how Bob Macy, ran his all of his trials. Basically, was, if even if he didn't commit the crime, if he was there, and
Yeah,
where we talking in oh gosh, I can never remember the name of it, and it's such a good book, the Mark Godsey book. Uh, anyway, when he talks about a co-conspirator or co-ejaculator, we really do hear a lot about that kind of stuff from Bob
Blind,
Macy.
blind injustice.
Blind Injustice. Thank you, Jack. Yes, Blind Injustice. Um, and it was funny because I remember when I listened to that the first time, I was thinking at the same time, gosh, that sounds exactly like Bob Macy. That's the way Bob Macy ran his court. It was disgusting. Okay, here we go.
or not a defendant in a criminal case is going to be tried individually or with an alleged accomplice is hardly a minute technicality. By refusing to sever the cases, Judge Cook severely handicapped both Fowler's and Fox's ability to present effective defenses. After being told the defendants would be tried together, Fowler's and Fox's attorneys had less than a month to prepare a new defense. The only defense available to each defendant was that the other had committed the killings. While state law required only that they knowingly participate in a felony that resulted in death in order to be convicted of murder in the first degree, there was a chance that, if their trials had been severed, one of the defendants would have been able to effectively argue that he was not directly responsible for the killings and maybe get a life sentence instead of death. At the time, life without parole was not available in Oklahoma. Under a straight life sentence, the inmate could be eligible for parole after a period of as short as 7 years. The Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board would never release an inmate convicted of participating in a brutal murder after only 7 years. However remote, that possibility did exist, according to the law. This was a situation that Macy worked to his advantage in pursuing the death penalty. An Oklahoma
So,
jury
was that
had to
it,
choose
Roger?
between the death penalty and what they knew.
So basically, what that's saying there is that there was a law that they could be released after 7 years, but
Right.
there was no way that they would do that. A lot of parole boards and things like that, in my opinion, wouldn't do that anyway. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. What were the chances of a convicted murderer actually being paroled after 7 years? I
Yeah,
mean, there's
non-existent. And whether it's here in the UK or, over there in America, I mean, it just wouldn't happen unless they had a dramatic overnight miracle and, they were completely renowned and whatever, divine or something like that, to
right.
be able to get out that soon after a murder like that. But to me, that's like something that they could use. Oh, well, see, if you confess to this, you'll only do 7 years,
Right.
even though they wouldn't.
Yeah. Exactly. It wasn't very likely. And you know what? Let's. Of course, this is hindsight now. For this comment, but in Oklahoma, they weren't releasing a convicted murderer, especially if he committed or admitted guilt. Um, there's no way they'd release him in 7 years. No way. They wouldn't even
No.
release. So, what was the what were the chances they were going to release him after 7 years or 10 years or 25 years or 30 or 40 years? The chances were very,
Not a
very,
chance in hell. Is
yeah,
that what I?
yeah,
Yeah.
very minuscule. So that's just definitely ridiculous. Okay. Thank you, Dark Side. Have a good sleep, and thank you for catching all the bots for us. We appreciate it.
Dark side rocks.
Yep, she sure does.
It's
Good night,
late as
Derek.
hell for her though.
I
Yeah.
know.
Good night, dear.
She's got to work in the morning. So thank you very much. We'll see you next time.
Hey, don't they understand we have cases to solve?
I know. What is wrong with these damn employers?
Yeah. What about that? Go ahead.
Okay, here we go.
Year sentence. Macy and his assistant DAs had pounded this issue into the public consciousness through a series of speeches and media comments. The Wynn's IGA murders had happened almost in his own backyard. Macy wanted 2 death penalties, and he was determined to get them. Billy Ray Fox was defended by Opio Torre and Tim Wilson. Mark Fowler's lawyer was Jim Rowan, then with the Public Defender's Office. This was Rowan's first capital case. Jim Rowan has gone on to become an experienced capital trial attorney. Yet when he defended Mark Fowler, according to one observer, Rowan didn't know shit from apple butter. The defense attorneys agreed on what they called a mutual non-aggression pact. Even though both defendants had already blamed the other in taped statements to the police, their lawyers decided not to offer any evidence, testimony, or arguments that the other defendant was responsible for the killings. This way, Macy's tactic of trying Fowler and Fox together effectively cut the legs out from under their defense. Statements by both Fowler and Fox had already placed them both at the crime scene with the intent of robbing the store. "We decided," Macy said later, "that we could successfully prosecute both of them without using their statements to police." If Macy did use the defendant's statements, he would have had to include their claims that the other had been the killer. Without the statements, Macy needed to link both defendants to the murders themselves. Not only were Fowler's and Fox's defenses antagonistic, but most of the evidence pointed toward Billy Ray Fox as the killer. Fox's statement, reported third hand by his roommate, that Fowler had stabbed Barrier was the only evidence linking Fowler to any of the murders. In order to get the death penalty for both defendants, Bob Macy would have to place the two of them in the back room at the same time the murders were committed. Enter Joyce Gilchrist. Gilchrist had been able to find hair evidence that, according to her analysis, not only put both suspects in the back storeroom when the murders were committed, but also put them in close contact with the victims at the same time. This was 1986, before Gilchrist had been contradicted by defense experts or criticized by appellate courts for giving such testimony. At trial, Gilchrist testified that 4 scalp hairs consistent with Fowler's were found on Barrier's shirt. Another scalp hair that Gilchrist matched to Fowler's was found inside a spring that had broken off the shotgun and lodged beneath Barrier's body. Gilchrist matched a bloody hair stuck to a ring on Barrier's finger to Billy Ray Fox's. As a result of this hair evidence, Gilchrist concluded that, in her opinion, Mark Fowler and Bill Fox were in contact with John Barrier prior to death. As Macy had indicated before the trial, the hair evidence was crucial to placing both defendants at the murder scene. But did it prove that both men were responsible for the killings? The defense hired Skip Palanek, a forensic scientist from Chicago, as an expert witness. Palanek examined the hairs that Gilchrist had matched to both defendants. At trial, Palanek testified that the unknown hairs found on Barrier's body that Gilchrist had matched to Mark Fowler's could be from the suspect or the victim equally. Palanek also disagreed with Gilchrist's conclusion that the hair found on Barrier's ring came from Billy Ray Fox. Gilchrist admitted that her hair analysis had been rushed.
Muted mic. I freaking hate this damn thing. So here we have Gilchrist admitting that her hair analysis had been rushed. So even if we were to accept the hair analysis as valid and possible and good scientific evidence, she admitted that she rushed it. Again, you can't rush that kind of stuff, in my opinion. You can't rush your work that is involving the lives of 2 men. You just,
No.
it's so frustrating.
Yeah, something like that, when somebody's life is in your hands, you want to get the correct result, whether that be a good result or a bad result for the defense or for the prosecution. It shouldn't matter. All that should matter is that you have got the possibility of sending this man or this woman to death, and you've got that in your hands, and it's what you come up with doing your tests that are going to decide that. You know
what that means? You know what that means, right? They don't value life at all.
Right.
Exactly, Jack.
Cheap.
Exactly. because you
Yep.
would take the time to do it. You wouldn't leave it sitting on your desk for a week, or no, test it for a year, or just, all right, I'll rush this through and I'll give them the answer that they want, because we know that that's what Gilchrist does for Bob Macy anyway.
Oh
Whether
yeah.
her results are true or no, whether it comes back and says that it's negative, she'll say no, they're guilty, even though they're completely innocent. And we've known that with what we went over already. You know what I mean? So for them to have somebody's life in their hands like that, and to rush something as important as that, is disgusting, and they shouldn't be in the job if that's the case.
And wouldn't you think that if that she admitted that, wouldn't you think that that could be a part of a I don't know, an ineffective assistance of counsel, or
Sure.
a Sixth Amendment? It's got to be some sort of a Sixth Amendment violation. But again, this
Oh,
is
now we are talking about Oklahoma now, okay?
right, right. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's carry on.
In addition to Gilchrist's hair testimony, Macy presented a blood expert who testified that examinations showed blood present on the clothes worn by both defendants on the night of the murders. These tests, the expert admitted, were presumptive and not conclusive. Not only could he not link the blood to any of the victims, but he could not even determine conclusively whether the blood was human or animal.
And this is Palahniuk we're talking about. So I'm forgive me if I sound like I trust him more than I trust Gilchrist, but I do far more.
My God.
Yep. So here you have a expert testimony coming in from Skip Palahniuk, who's saying that he can't even tell if it's um, blood or human, or the blood is human or animal. Who the hell does Joyce Gilchrist think she is, that she can tell just by examining hairs and looking at hairs under microscopes? Just talk about freaking God complexes. These guys are, their cups runneth over with God complex.
Yep, they sure
Tom
do.
Bevel of the
Oh yeah.
OCPD testified as an expert in blood spatter analysis. Bevel reconstructed the crime scene following the state's theory that both Fowler and Fox had been present in the back storeroom and involved in the murder. Fox was alleged to have shot Case and Chowlison and beaten Barrier with the shotgun. Fowler was alleged to have stabbed Barrier 9 times. The knife had been found in Fox's possession, and the t-shirt with bloodstains indicating that it had been used to wipe the knife clean was found in his pickup truck. On cross-examination, Bevel conceded that it was possible, although not probable, that one person could have committed all 3 murders. He also said that he had based much of his analysis on the presumptive blood tests on the defendant's clothing that was not conclusive as to the origin or even the nature of the blood. Blood spatter analysis is a very complex forensic science. A small miscalculation or misreading of the evidence can result in severely flawed crime scene reconstruction. Because the science relies on fluid dynamics and trajectory, a series of complicated equations is necessary to come up with the final analysis that is, even when done correctly, only a theory and not a scientific fact. While blood spatter analysis can be useful in crime scene reconstruction during an investigation or at trial to show a more vivid picture of how the crime occurred, it cannot be used to prove guilt, as Macy did in this trial. Other than Skip Palahniuk, the defense called no other witnesses during the guilt phase of the trial. In what they described as a tactical move, Wilson and Torrey declined to make a closing argument. In his closing argument, Rowan abrogated the mutual non-aggression pact, telling jurors that Fox alone was responsible for the murders. After 2 hours of deliberation, the jury found Fowler and Fox each guilty on 3 counts of first-degree murder. In retrospect, Fox's defense attorneys admitted that they had not expected an acquittal. We knew this is where we were going to be, Tim Wilson said after the verdict. He said that the next day, during the penalty phase, was when the real struggle begins. Jim Rowan had a little more fight in him, but he also knew that the real challenge would be to save his client's life. Just before Macy went into the courtroom for closing arguments during the penalty phase, he saw Billy Ray Fox's dad in the hallway. Sam Fox was a local firefighter. He and Macy had become friends over the course of the trial, even though Macy was seeking to execute Fox's son. "I'd rather you not go in there," Macy told Sam Fox. "I'm going to say some pretty bad things about your son." "You've got a job to do," Fox replied. "Go in there and do it."
That's pretty. I recall when I was reading this, thinking, did he think that Bob Macy, because they had kind of become chummy during the course of the trial, that he kind of? I wondered if Sam Fox, Billy Ray Fox's father, thought that maybe he had gained some favor with Bob Macy and thought that maybe, you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
think
he might
I
have, but
wonder,
n-
yeah, he might have, but um, well, you already
not
know
with
that
blood,
both of these men were executed, so
not with blood, not with bloodthirsty Bob. Mm-mm.
no, bloodthirsty Bob. Yep, that's right. That's right. Okay.
Defense witnesses testified that when he wasn't high on drugs, Billy Ray Fox was a shy, polite, and hardworking young man. A former girlfriend cried as she described breaking up with Fox because he was changing, he was getting into drugs. Sam Fox took the stand and pleaded for his son's life. "I love my son. I know he's done wrong and needs to be punished. The only thing I could ask is not to put him to death. Let the carnage end. Choose life." Jim Rowan urged the jury when his turn came to argue on behalf of Mark Fowler. During his closing arguments, Macy told the jury to ignore any mitigating circumstances. "Why these defendants are what they are may be a good field of research, but it's no mitigation or justification for what they did."
Um, Jack, and Alice both, you can, certainly comment on this, but isn't that what mitigating circumstances are usually presented for? To sort of kind of a last ditch plea to the jury, if you will, to take into consideration all of the things that have happened, in a person's life leading up to the crime that
Yes,
they committed.
that's
Yeah,
exactly what mitigating circumstances are.
yet Bob Macy tells the jury to ignore it, ignore all the mitigating circumstances.
Of
And maybe
course.
that's a common thing, but for prosecutors to do. Um, but it seems to me like that should have been. I don't know, man. I know mistrial is a little a bit reaching, but that just seems wrong to me to say to a jury. Alice, did you have something?
No, no, just exactly agree with everything that you have said. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really surprising that he would say that to a jury because they can make up their own mind whether they're going to believe the guy or not. He didn't. I mean, to me, because he's a prosecutor, I don't know. It's almost. I don't know what the rules are. I mean, it's a difference by jurisdiction, but of course, for him and in that county, I'm sure they'd let him get away with murder. But
Literally.
literally, yeah. I don't know. That seemed to be really pushed it close to the edge there of something that's crossing the line.
Well, he's not supposed to be telling the jury what to think. He's supposed to be presenting
Yeah,
a case and presenting evidence, not
yeah,
telling the jury what they should or shouldn't think, or
right.
should or shouldn't ignore, or whatever.
I agree.
Okay.
"If this isn't a crime that deserves the death penalty," Macy said in conclusion, "I don't know what is." Following a deliberation of 3 hours, the jury gave Mark Andrew Fowler and Billy Ray Fox the death penalty.
I'm going to stop muting my freaking mic. 3 hours.
Yep.
3 hours that they came up with a death penalty.
Yeah, see, I don't think that's right. I mean, if you're deliberating on sending somebody to their death, it should take more than 3 hours or 2 hours, or one of the cases that we were looking into, they were in there for half an hour. You know, that's
Right.
no, in my opinion anyway, I don't think that that is an appropriate time scale to look over all the evidence, take in all the considerations, talk it through, you know what I mean, properly deliberate, because you're sending this person to death, you
Yeah.
know, and they're allowed to come back. I mean, I think in a sense, if they come back in a shorter time like that, a judge should be able to say to them, are you sure? I think you should maybe take a wee bit more time to decide, you know, because in my opinion, if they're coming back in half an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, then they've already had their minds made up before even the beginning of the trial, during the voir dire, freaking everything like that. You know what I mean? For them to be able to come to a decision like that in that short a space time.
Right. I imagined them all sitting back there. I don't know what time of day this was, but I imagined them all saying, "Yeah, let's order lunch and just have lunch, and and then we'll make our decision. But let's just relax for a little while, and then we'll come back and sentence to death." That's just what it seemed like to me. Um, Mo's call says that a prosecutor does not have the right to say that; the judge has to. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. If I to the best of my knowledge, yes, I agree. I completely agree with that, Mose.
Shortly after Fowler and Fox were sentenced to death, a mail carrier walked into the Edmond post office and shot 14 of his co-workers dead and wounded 7 others. Bob Macy was at this crime scene too, but he wasn't able to prosecute Patrick Henry Sherrill, who concluded one of the worst mass murders in this nation's history by shooting himself to death.
And just for anybody who doesn't know, this is the case where the term "gone postal" comes from that particular case. Okay, that's all.
In 1994, Jim Fowler's son, Jimbo, died in a motorcycle accident. Mark and Jimbo have both been adopted. Their adoptive mother died when both boys were teenagers.
Now, this part that's coming up is going to be what I consider to be mitigating circumstances. What they're going to talk about, and it has to do with both of these boys having been adopted when they were young, because their mother had abandoned them. But I'll just play it and let you listen. But these are mitigating circumstances, in my opinion.
Mark knew his biological mother had abandoned him, Jim Fowler said. Then the only mother he knew died. Jim Fowler had remarried in 1980. Immediately after Mark's conviction, Jim and Ann Fowler could not bring themselves to visit him at McAllister. Can't imagine. Jim broke down, sobbing. How you feel when your baby boy has been convicted of something like that and you feel so shameful, it just kills you. Jim and Ann Fowler came to accept the fact that their son had been involved in a homicide and sentenced to death. They began to visit Mark regularly and got involved in his appeals process. Both hoped that once the case got out of the state courts, Mark might have his sentence reduced. The Court of Criminal Appeals upheld both Fowler's and Fox's convictions in separate decisions. However, in the Fox decision, the court noted that while Joyce Gilchrist had admitted that an individual could not be positively identified by hair evidence, she went on to testify that, in her opinion, Mark Fowler and Bill Fox were in contact with John Barrier prior to death.
And also, and and I'm too bad Dr. Silkman's not here for this part, but um, we know that that's not how a crime lab analyst is supposed to testify. They're not supposed to testify um, from their opinion. They're not supposed to give their opinion. They're supposed to testify on the science, not their opinion. Am I right, Jack?
That's correct.
Okay.
The court noted that this opinion lacked scientific weight, but since Skip Palahniuk had been called as a witness by the defense, there was no reversible error. Sometimes Gilchrist would qualify her statements about hair, saying only that she could not exclude the defendant. Other times she would testify that hairs were an absolute match. Many who have studied her testimony over the years have been unable to determine why she would testify differently in different cases. David Prater, who handled the DA's internal investigation of Gilchrist, said that in some cases Gilchrist would be asked by the prosecutor whether she could say the hairs were a definite match, and she would answer no. In other cases, however, she would not be asked these specific questions by the prosecution, and she would not add any qualifiers to her statements. Years later, when Captain Byron Boschel asked Gilchrist about the problems with her testimony in the Fowler and Fox case, she blamed Bob Macy. "I did give my opinion," Gilchrist said, "based on the results of my examination of the evidence that both defendants, Fox and Fowler, were in direct contact with the victim. Although it was deemed inappropriate conduct by the Court of Criminal Appeals, I was merely responding to the prosecutor's questions." In January 2000, the 10th Circuit Court upheld Fox's and Fowler's convictions. In a concurring opinion, Judge David Ebel criticized Macy for improperly linking Fowler to Fox's confession, but stated that there was still strong independent evidence of Mr. Fowler's participation in the crimes. Therefore, Macy's error, though improper, did not render the trial fundamentally unfair. After
What the hell does it take to get a damn judge or a prosecutor or anybody on the state side of a damn crime responsible? What does it take to get them held responsible? And all that has done, that behavior like that has done, is perpetuate where we are today. And it just pisses me off.
That's why reform is such a hot topic now, and has been for the last 2 or 3 years. It's boiled over. People are fucking fed up.
Yes. And I was really excited when we were with, well, not that I wasn't excited. Sunshine Christina's CTE today, because I thought we were good. Well, that really sounds bad. Initially, we were going to be talking about, bad prosecutors. Stuff like that. Yeah.
I know.
And I was like, this is perfect. So anyway.
the 10th Circuit affirmed Fowler's and Fox's convictions, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear their cases. With all their appeals exhausted, Fowler and Fox now waited for their execution dates. Attorney General Drew Edmondson asked the Court of Criminal Appeals to set the executions on the same day to save the victims' families from having to endure this trauma twice. The court declined and gave them separate dates, 2 days apart. Mark Fowler was scheduled to die on January 23, 2001. Billy Ray Fox would die on January 25th. Did Mark Fowler deserve the death penalty? It's hard for me to judge because of my conversations with Jim Fowler and the sympathy I feel for him. Trying to be as objective as possible, I would have to say that the evidence doesn't prove Fowler was directly involved in the murder, and although his involvement in the robbery might have constituted a murder committed during an act of a felony, this seems to me to be a narrow reading of the law. The investigating detectives could have corroborated or disproved Fowler's claim that he did not directly participate in the murders. Using Gilchrist's hair evidence and Bevel's crime scene reconstruction, the detectives might feel that they did prove Fowler's involvement. I am not convinced. They could have offered Fowler a polygraph and used those results, pass or fail, as a way to help Bob Macy decide whether or not Fowler should be tried for the first-degree murder. A polygraph could have helped determine Fowler's intent, whether he planned to participate in the robbery without any thought of murder, or whether he had gone into that supermarket ready to kill. If he could convince me that he did not have intent to kill, I would recommend to a DA that Mark Fowler be charged with armed robbery and as an accessory to murder. While awaiting his clemency hearing, Mark Fowler said that he hoped that the governor would reduce his sentence to life without parole. We would have been happier than hell if he had been given life without parole, Jim Fowler said. I told people, God damn it, if I ever get Mark off death row, I'll kill him myself. More than 200 of Mark Fowler's family, friends, and supporters showed up for his clemency hearing. Because of space limitations, only 62 were allowed inside the room. At the hearing, some of Oklahoma's top Roman Catholic clergymen pleaded for Fowler's life. I am totally sorry for my role in this tragedy, Mark Fowler said when his turn came to speak. I never, ever planned to be a part of a murder. Family members of the murder victims got the last word. In my heart, I can't forgive these boys, said Frank Cast, brother of Rick. After the executions, maybe I can start to forgive them. By a vote of 4-0, the board denied Fowler clemency. Fox did not seek a clemency hearing. Jim and Ann Fowler spent the entire last week at McAllister visiting Mark. One day we were kept waiting for about an hour and a half, Jim remembered. When Mark finally showed up on the other side of his visitor's window, Jim was angry. He asked where Mark had been. Pop, I've just received the last rites of the church and made my last confession and took communion. Jim remembers the look on Mark's face was beautiful. There was a glow coming from him. It passed over us, and we felt better because he felt better. Fowler's last confession was private. Previously, his uncle, Father Greg Gieger, a Catholic priest, had asked Mark point blank whether he had killed anybody, and Mark said no. Jim believes his son was telling the truth. You don't lie on your deathbed, Jim said. If you have any fear of God at all, you're going to come clean. Mark had told his father that he didn't want him to watch the execution, but Jim felt that, in truth, Mark wanted him there. No son is going to ask his dad to watch the state kill him, Jim said. Mark had told his father that the guards and administrators at the prison didn't like him, but Jim found out this wasn't true. He had made some friends in there with the people who worked there. He hadn't caused them any trouble, but it was their job to kill him, Jim said. I said, boy, if you were dying from any other cause, cancer or AIDS or a car wreck or anything, I'd be beside you, Jim told me. I would not abandon him. I would not leave him there to go through that moment of his life alone. Although witnessing his son's execution was the most painful moment of his life, Jim Fowler said that he would do it again tomorrow because Mark needed us, and I don't think I could look myself in the mirror again had I not gone down there. When he told me this, I said it was very brave. It's not brave, it's what parents are for. On the day of Mark's execution, Jim and Ann Fowler visited with him all day. For his last meal, Mark had a cheeseburger, a bacon cheeseburger, 2 orders of onion rings, a grilled chicken sandwich, and a cherry limeade. Jim told his son that there were 200 people outside the prison holding a candlelight vigil for him. Earlier that day, 7 people had been arrested outside the offices of Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board for protesting the execution. Before he said goodbye, Mark asked his father to put his hand on his head in the witness viewing room so that he would be able to recognize him through the glass. At 5 p.m., Mark made some last telephone calls. Then he was led into the execution chamber. Jim and Ann Fowler sat in the front row of chairs. When the blinds came up, Jim saw his son lying on the gurney. Jim put his hand on his head. So did every other family member. Mark looked back, and when he saw that, he settled down, Jim said. Asked if he had any last words, Mark began to recite the Hail Mary. His family prayed along with him. Mark kept repeating the Hail Mary as the drugs rushed into his veins. Then he was silent. His head slumped down. His eyes closed. At 9:07 p.m., Mark Andrew Fowler was pronounced dead. In a way, Mark's death was beautiful, Jim said. During the 15 years he waited to die, Mark had a chance to make peace with everyone, particularly his family. There was not one stone unturned, not one I love you that went unsaid. 2 days later, Billy Ray Fox was put on the gurney. When asked if he had any last words, Fox said no. He smiled at his family members, then his eyes went glassy. He looked up at the ceiling and his head slowly drooped. Billy Ray Fox was declared dead at 9:06 p.m. Mark Fowler and Billy Ray Fox were both executed before the scandal surrounding Joyce Gilchrist broke. After the Gilchrist grand jury was convened, Fowler wrote a letter to the Office for U.S. Attorneys offering to testify. He never heard back from them. Before Mark was executed, Jim Fowler promised his son that he would devote the rest of his life.
Did you have
God,
something, Jack?
just throwing up. You
Oh,
know,
yeah. Yeah. It's bad.
To fighting the death penalty. Jim serves on the board of Oklahoma Coalition Against the Death Penalty and is involved in several lobbying campaigns to change Oklahoma statutes concerning the death penalty. He regularly participates in vigils and protests against state executions. I am against the death penalty forevermore, Jim said. That's a promise I made to my son. To speak with Jim Fowler and see the anguish and grief in his eyes is to see another side of the death penalty. Jim Fowler did nothing wrong, yet he is a victim. A very warm, sincere, and friendly man, Jim Fowler has a sense of humor that has survived all the tragedies of his life. His love for his son is very evident. Yet he never makes excuses for what Mark did. Several times when I spoke to him, he referred to Mark in the present tense as if he were still alive. The pain Jim felt was still with him when we spoke. It will be with him always. Yet he is never bitter. He accepts what happened with grace and humility, as much as he wishes that it never occurred. I hope that if something half as terrible happened to my family, I would be as brave as Jim Fowler. He has a courage that is rare and beautiful. It is the same courage that I have seen in Dorothy Moxley, whose 15-year-old daughter was killed and her murder went unsolved for 23 years. It's not the courage of street brawls or gunfights. It's a moral courage, the ability to withstand the worst that can happen and not give in to hatred or despair. Without trying to convince me that capital punishment was wrong, Jim Fowler made me look at it from a different perspective, that of a parent whose child faces death. The parents of the condemned follow each step of the trial and appellate processes all the way up to the day when their child is executed. The death penalty is planned in great detail and well in advance. For the parents, the grief is drawn out over years and lasts a lifetime. There's no closure for Jim Fowler or any other family member of someone who has been executed. It remains a nightmare that never ends. After I spoke to Jim Fowler, I wondered how would I react if my son were facing the death penalty. Would I be able to handle the anger, shame, pain, and grief? Before I had children myself, it was easy for me to say that parents of criminals were to blame for the way their children turned out. I had ideas about what kind of behavior I would or would not tolerate as a parent. Now I realize that no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, your children will become their own individual selves. All you can do is guide them, support them, and love them. As parents, we try to keep our children safe, teach them responsibility, and help them become good people. And if they go wrong, we don't love them any less. I know that I would never abandon my son, no matter what he might do. I would forgive him as Jim Fowler forgave Mark. And if I could forgive my own son, why can't I forgive someone else's son? That, for me, is the question at the core of the death penalty. It is a punishment of revenge, as final as any judgment can ever be, leaving no room for compassion or forgiveness. When I was a cop, I only had compassion for the victims of a crime. I could not allow myself to feel anything but contempt for those who were responsible. Jim Fowler helped me realize that it was possible to feel compassion even for criminals, which is right and necessary, yet only makes the rendering of justice more difficult.
I like the little fade music. Wonderful job reading too.
What's that? Sorry.
I said I like the little fade music and wonderful job reading as well.
Thank you. Thank you. And I don't know
Yeah,
how.
I mean, Jim Fowler, I mean, he needs a medal I mean, it just goes to show you that people's minds can be changed. You know, as we said at the beginning, he was for the death penalty and everything like that. But then when it happened to his own son, it completely changed him. I mean, there is no way I could do that as a mother. Watch my son or daughter or whoever be put to death like that. God, it was bad enough when my son got put to sleep for an operation and he was holding on to my hand, and you know that they just go limp and it just falls. You know, that was bad enough. And I know it was only sleeping, but to go through that and watch that and still have that attitude that Jim has got now and still fighting, I think the guy deserves a medal.
Cherie,
Hi, Cherie. Thank you
Hi,
for
Sheree.
coming.
Hello.
how are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad.
Good.
Good. Yeah, we just. I mean, I realized that I lost a few viewers during that reading and discussion, and that's okay. Um, but I just I wanted to show how the death, and I just didn't want to chop it up. I wanted to show how the death penalty, how executing someone innocent or guilty, either way, how it affects the family and the friends of those that are executed, and that it's not just a wash my hands, okay, that's done, now that guy's executed and dead, he got what he deserved. It isn't that at all.
No.
It might be some justification for, or justice rather, for the ones left, the victim, the ones of a victim of crime. Oh, I can't say what I'm trying to say. It might be some sort of justice for those who are left behind, that of the crime victims.
There is no closure.
There's no such
There is no
thing.
closure.
There's no such thing as
It,
closure. There's just I
No,
it's
just
a made up word.
it is, and I
yeah,
despise that word.
yeah.
I
But I
hate the
mean,
word.
Me
the,
too.
the thing is, as well, though, I mean, even though they've done heinous crimes and killed people and things like that, they are still a human being. You know, treat them
I
like
think
a
it's more
human being.
I think it's more punishment to give them life imprisonment and force them to be locked up.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
agree. I completely
yeah.
agree. And it just I know that I believe all four of us on the panel right now have had this discussion either with each other or as a group altogether. But I I feel like a hypocrite because I do reserve the capital punishment for a particular criminal, and that is a criminal who has violated a child or children, and especially if there's proof of that. Well, only if there's proof of that, of course. Um, Other than that, I just the Chris Watts of the world. Yes, I reserve the death penalty for somebody like that. But for anything else, I just I don't know. If there is ever any doubt, whether it be through forensics or eyewitness testimony or jailhouse snitch testimony or whatever it is, there's no room to take somebody else's life when there's always a possibility that person is innocent. And that's really what it comes down to for me.
Yeah, I mean, people get sent to jail because they think it's all right themselves to take the law into their own hands and kill somebody and everything like that. So, what gives states the right to do exactly the same and decide whether to murder somebody or not? Because that's
Well,
what it is.
it's that gang mentality. I think, Alice. It's like, yeah, we'll show you, we'll kill you, but it's not a deterrent. It's a release of anger that lasts literally seconds and it's over. But you're still angry. Whatever's happened. You still have people that have been killed or whatever. That's still there. But this person is no longer having to face that music. They're gone.
Yeah, they're gone. Yeah. Jack, I know how particular you are about your sound, and yours is in pretty rough shape.
Is it really?
Yeah, it sounded like it was.
What about now?
No, now it sounds better.
Yeah.
It was a bit staticky.
Yeah.
Well, you need to stop that.
Yeah, you know what I do.
That's all you, buddy. That's all you.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. But if it does again, let me know and I'll pop out and well, I got a jet here shortly anyway. But
taking off anyway. Well, I hope that this discussion tonight about Bob Macy's, just his literal, and I like Jack's name, Bloodthirsty Bob, because that is how Bob Macy, how he sounds and how he tried cases was like he wanted blood.
Well,
an eye for an eye.
78 people he sent to death row.
It's horrid. It's horrid to me. And to think that at least, I can't remember what the number is, but at least 12 or maybe it was 20 of those people that were executed are thought to have been innocent. And they definitely found Malcolm Morant Johnson was not guilty of that crime that he was executed for. And Bob Macy's attitude was, well, he was guilty of something. He was guilty of all the other rapes and all the other burglaries that he committed. And yeah, he was, but that was not what Malcolm Morant Johnson was on trial for and why he was executed. So it's so frustrating and makes me angry.
It's that Dr. Michael West attitude. Well, we made a mistake. Just open the jail door and let him out. What's the big deal?
Yeah. Yeah, because that's so easy, right? I mean, look at what we've been doing for Jack, you for 6 years now, me for about 4 years, with, Stephen and Brendan, and now with Daniel. It isn't as easy as just opening the door and letting him out.
The only thing, besides what we're doing now, and for as long as, we can do it, pass it on to our children and the younger generation, you got to make this right. You got to stop it because, when you get into the criminal justice system, the profession is different. And it involves so many people, lawyers from both sides of the aisle, policemen of all stripe, the crime labs of every kind from, the lower, local or state crime lab all the way to the FBI. It has to change. Right. Plea deals, please.
No plea deals, yeah. Yeah, it's just, and I am not trying to get political here. You guys know that I don't like talking about politics, but telling you what, the stuff that is going on in our world now is, well, I shouldn't say our world, but particularly our country, is just terrifying to me. And, it's not about guns and controlling, taking guns away and Xing out our Second Amendment rights and things like that. It's not about that. It's about the prosecutors and the judges and the thought just went out of my head, but the corrections, they are the ones who really when it gets into their hands, something has to change. And I
Well, they
am
make
all
everything
about it.
political. They want
Yes,
to
and
make everything political, and not everything's not political. To me, a gun owner, I believe in the Second Amendment right. People to responsibly own a freaking gun. Responsibly, as responsible as they own a car or anything that can be used as a weapon against other people. There's a
right.
responsibility that comes with that.
Well,
Sorry, there is.
I sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Jack. Go ahead.
No. You're fine.
I just think, as far as that goes, as far as I'm concerned about that, we're not seeing shootings that are being carried out by legal gun owners, or we don't hear about those on the news. We don't hear about, me, exercising my Second Amendment right.
Well, no, that's not salacious. Come on.
We're not those who are exercising legally and responsibly their Second Amendment rights are not the ones that we're seeing on the news every day. So
Agreed.
there's where the problem is. And
Right.
it's just,
See, I just don't understand your gun laws and your Second Amendment.
I can explain that to you really simply. It all is driven from when America was first formed, and the first several amendments were written. As far as the bill, our first 10 amendments are considered our Bill of Rights. The thing with the guns, and that's, it all comes down to if the citizenry felt like that the government was doing the wrong thing, they could get enough guns and people and to form a militia and overthrow them, so it wouldn't happen what happened when they came to America and got away from all of that. So that's why it was there. At least part of the reason.
That's fair enough for back then, Jack. You know what I mean? When all that type of thing was going about. But we're living in a different century and that, and it's like, why do you need a gun if you live in a city? You know what I mean? A huge city. Fair enough, having a gun if you're out in rural areas for hunting your deer or whatever it is you're hunting for,
right,
your way. You know what I mean? That's fair enough, But why does everybody, every household, every person have to have a gun in a big city and things like that, where police can come to you quite quickly? And I mean, I just don't understand it. It's maybe because over here in the UK, the only people that have lawfully are allowed to have guns are the police.
Right.
It's not to say that there isn't guns here in the UK. There is, but we just don't hear about it. I mean, over here, it's more knife crime. You hear about a lot of knife crime. I mean, there was a young lad who was stabbed last weekend to death and things like that. So we have a lot of knife crime here, but
right,
the only legal persons that are allowed to have guns over here are police officers, and even at that, it's only a certain unit of
right,
police
limited.
officers.
It's limited, yeah.
right.
Yeah, it's like the armed force of the Scotland police or the England police or whatever. But our normal bobbies on the beat, they don't have guns or anything like that. They have tasers and they have batons.
I'm gonna have to let you all finish discussing that. I have to scoot.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jack. Thanks for all of your input and your opinions and education.
Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks,
We'll
Jack. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
We'll talk soon.
Yep. Good night.
Good night.
Yeah, that's I mean, we are pretty well ready to wrap up here. And then next week that we'll talk more about we will do we'll go into the case of Robert Miller. Yeah. And his is a sad case because he was kind of pounced on and bullied and taken advantage of. So and Bob Macy was just, kind of like the 1985 case with Stephen and Brenda. Well, with Stephen, I mean, when it was found that Robert Lee Miller, no forensic evidence matched him whatsoever. Um, they still left him just kind of languishing in prison, or well, Bob Macy did, and that was just kind of allowed because he was determined. He was determined. Bob Macy was determined to keep Robert Lee Miller in prison and have him executed. So we'll talk about him next week. And
That makes me think of Brendan because, look how Schimmel was when, he was about to get out. Oh, he can't get out and he's got to appeal it. And
yep.
it was,
Schimmel
yeah.
was just, oh, yeah. So, all right. Well, I think that unless we have any questions, Shaz, I'm so sorry that you weren't able to make it from the beginning. Um, you can, you can catch up with and listen to it again later. And, um, but I don't know, I feel like we covered quite a bit. Hopefully it wasn't too confusing when I threw the Roger Stafford thing in there, but I kind of I felt like it was kind of important to mention why Bob Macy was saying in the very beginning of the Fowler case, if Roger Stafford had been executed, this wouldn't have happened because it was just an asinine comment, in my opinion. So, but a lot of things that Bob Macy said are asinine comments. So, Alice, you have any last comments or thoughts you want to share?
No, just thank you for having us, and looking forward to the weekend for open mic and Uncle Ken.
Yes,
Oh, and
definitely.
Brendan talks tomorrow.
No, is it tomorrow
Friday.
or Friday?
Friday.
Friday. Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Get my
Brendan
days
talks on
mixed up
Friday.
now.
Reading with Uncle Ken. Oh, God, that always gets us going. And then, of
Yeah,
course,
well,
the
I'm
open
hoping to get
mics.
my room finished. I've got it's like a wee square room between my front door and my kitchen, and I'm trying to get it all painted and everything so that I
Thank
can
you.
maybe turn it into a mini studio, so that I can start using my green screen and everything like that. So
Yeah.
I've got the doors to finish painting, and then that'll be that. Once it's dry, I'm hoping to get in there and start doing my videos again. So
Good. 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 We're looking forward to it. Yep. We're definitely looking forward to it. Cherie, did you have any thoughts you wanted to share with us?
Well, you muted me, so
I
I
did.
saw that.
I did.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I was just going to say that, where Bob Macy was saying, well, if Stafford had been executed, such and such wouldn't have happened. Well, a lot of innocent people might have lived if it wasn't for you,
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Macy.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm reading a book that Cherie sent to me. And as I've been reading it, I'm trying to, as far as, I mean, he covers the Fox and Fowler case, but all the cases that he does cover, it's like a page or a page and a half that he talks about them. And of course, it's his side of, of what he believes. So, but what I'm learning about, because Cherie had asked me a while back if I have been learning anything or found out anything or found anything useful. What I'm reading in that book is that Bob Macy, uh, he started out from very meager, very, very, very poor, um, surroundings and family and things like that, as did most families, that were coming up in, during the 30s and the 40s and the Dust Bowl and all that stuff. And he had to fight really hard and work really hard for, for anything that he was going to ever have. And that's respectable. But it looks like when he got it looks like he got a lot of probably well-deserved praise and accolades for, different things that he was good at. But he continued getting them throughout his life, and, and then into adulthood. And it just looks like the more praise that he got, the bigger his head got, or the more arrogant he became. And I'm only about halfway through, but that's what I'm reading so far in that book, is that he he did come from, a really hardworking background, which is respectable, but at some point he lost humility. And I think if you're, when you're blessed with the kinds of talents and work ethics and things like that he was, um, those are things to be so grateful for, and I'm sure he was grateful for them. But with that praise and those accolades and those commendations, you have to find a way to balance humility. And now, this is an autobiography, and so when I'm reading, nobody has anything bad to say about Bob Macy in this book, of course.
I bet they don't.
Yeah, nobody's got anything bad, and that's okay too. That's fine. But they try to make it sound like this was just like the most perfect, and nobody says, I haven't come across anybody saying that Bob Macy was a perfect man. But when I read some of the things that some of them have said, Bob Macy was a humble man, I don't see that humility in reading this book, and then in reading Death and Justice. Humility is something that is the number one lacking trait that I see in Bob Macy.
Yeah, but then but we see that, no matter what case that we do, Rhonda, because look at Stephen and Brendan's case. A lot of people still don't think Aspender and Liger and Kratz and all the rest of them did anything wrong with what they
Right.
did with Brendan and things like that, And a lot of people in Daniel's case actually believe that Daniel did this, even though there's the evidence there utterly refutes that.
Right.
Description's the law, but there is, in Luke's case as well, there is still people in the local area and things like that are adamant that this lad done what he done, So I think there's always going to be those types of people. So when it comes to books and things like that, as you're saying, I hope as you get further on in the book that there is a few people that come out and say, well, actually, he wasn't as perfect as what they say. He was actually an asshole. You know what I mean? Because then it's, in my opinion, it's not a fair based book on the guy's life, his career, because nobody is that bloody perfect.
Right. Right.
And
Exactly.
when you get to that part, read it out loud for us, please.
I will. It might only take a minute or so I'll definitely read it and record it. All right. Well, I think that will be good for us for tonight. I want to thank everybody in the chat who who were able to stay and listen through the whole thing. And I hope that you'll join us again next week. And we'll probably wrap up Bob Macy. I think 3 cases is kind of enough to give a pretty good idea of what he was like. And then, also give some reminders in case anyone's forgotten about how evil Joyce Gilchrist was as well. And if you haven't watched that episode yet, I believe it was last October or November that we did the show on Joyce Gilchrist and Elaine Taylor. And so, and we covered briefly several cases in that podcast. So you can go back and, listen to that if you'd like, or if you're interested. Also, I gave a lot of links in the description of the Fowler case, and I believe there's also a link in there, Murderpedia, probably on the Roger Dale Stafford case.
Yeah, I've been posting.
Yeah,
I've been posting some of the links in the chat.
I saw that. Thank
and
you very
I'm going
much.
to get the Roger one just now and put that one in.
Yeah. So yeah, and hopefully we'll be getting some more news on Gieger and his and hopefully we do. And if we do, we'll certainly bring that to you guys as well. But in the meantime, again, thanks everyone for coming. Alice, Jack, and Cherie, thank you guys so much for being on panel with me. And until next time, peace out.